You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome to Phoenix Rising Radio. Now is the time to lift your mind higher. Now is the time to rise above. I am your host, Phoenix, and welcome to tonight's broadcast.
Welcome, everyone. This is Phoenix. Hope you're doing well. It is Tuesday, May 1st, 2018. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. We're joined with NeSe. He is with us. How's it going, brother? NeSe, are you there? Yeah, for some reason, apparently NeSe can't unmute his phone. So let's see. Yeah, apparently we're having some connection issues here. What that could be, I do not know. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope I'm going out live and hope that things are going well. I have no idea if I've got an audio here.
Am I here now?
Now you are. I wasn't even sure if we had audio, NeSe. I don't know what happened. I brought you in top of the hour and you weren't there.
Yeah, on my device or on my end, it said I was on, but then the mute, it wouldn't unmute. So, but we're here, and we're here on the birth recognition day of May 1st.
On May 1st. And why don't you go in to tell everyone the significance of that? Why don't you do that real quick? Let me do a couple of technical things here. Give me like 1 minute. Go into May 1st for everyone, NeSe.
Beautiful. Well, a lot of people may or may not know, I'm assuming with our audience that are in the know, you people of your ultimate wisdom or knowledge, that May 1st is allegedly the birth recognition date of the Illuminati, back with Europe and Adam Weishaupt, who was of Jewish descent, Hebrew background, yet was taught as a Jesuit. And in his learning or his seeking of knowledge, also being a Freemason of the time, decided to start his own group. And this group was called the Illuminati, where if you look at the original writings of Weishaupt, it was kind of in the best interest of mankind, because they were claiming at the time that they were illuminating themselves in enlightenment of wisdom and knowledge. But unbeknownst, and probably with the cliche of absolute power corrupts absolutely, individuals started saying, hey, what a wonderful game plan to create a global or worldly or universally power to control it all, where we get the phrase of the New World Order or the New Age. And it's rather interesting that when you do take the time to research of the Illuminati, actually how far back it goes, where it is basically semantics in giving it a label. And that is why I have chosen to, and you've all heard me say this time and time again, to label them as the powers that should not be.
Yeah, and not only that, the powers that should not be. Back when Weishaupt and like you're talking about the beginning of this goes way back. We're talking about the mystery schools of Babylon, and it has evolved into this desire to dominate the world. And we have these key families right now. And this is the whole thing, the Q phenomenon, and allegedly the battle against the deep state. And I guess you could basically say, well, quantitatively say that the deep state is the extension of what NeSe is talking about. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. If the like a cockroach infestation, the Illuminati and the metaphor of that have gotten into every nook and cranny of the facet of our existence. You name the group, there's probably been at one point or another people that are scrutinizing the intent of the group, whether it being a threat or a ally to the overall end game. And I would be the first one to admit that I would not have a challenge whatsoever with a new world order, with a one global government, if I thought that these entities that are ruling had first and above all respect, and then integrity and compassion. I'd be all up for it.
Well, and everyone would. In the tribal system, that's the way it is. Whenever you have a small group of people and they have an elder that's elevated to that point, if he is not all of those things, he is not the leader. And he's taken out by force or just never allowed to get into that position in the first place. And, that I think the ancient Israelites, whenever they became a people, etc., according to the Old Testament, they wanted a king. And, the prophets were communicating with the Godhead, the God entity, and were told, no king. You don't need a king to rule yourselves. It was basically kind of like this anarchy type situation where people would socially be responsible themselves in small groups, but the people wanted a king. And I think the reason that God said no king was because he knew that the failings of humanity and how weak individuals are, because people get into these positions of power, and they abuse it, man, all the way. We've seen this time and time and time again. This is nothing new. The deep state is not a new phenomenon. This is entrenchment of something that's going on for millennia.
Well, and then when it's that same game, different players, but it's deeper than that. It's different games, different players, but the same board. And more times than not, you realize that that board is a black and white checkered board.
Oh, yeah. Well, the game board, definitely black and white, the dualism, duality, etc. And here we are, May 1st, Beltane, May Day, May Day, May Day, May Day. And there will be all type of festivals going on. There's probably in Europe right now, they are happening, where they do the Beltane fires and all of that. I think Beltane Eve is primarily when they do the fires, and then today with the maypoles and everything. This is a festival going way back and also connected to communism, of course, May Day. And I don't know. it is traditionally a day of bloodletting also. We haven't seen any of that on a large scale thus far.
Well, if you look back at it and the whole quest of power, it always comes back to knowledge or wisdom. And my favorite metaphor is when you look at these ancient works, one of the things in common you find is that a lot of these ancient peoples would monitor the skies and the heavens, and they would calculate and figure out major events like eclipses. And if you're the individual that knows of the eclipse to occur, imagine the power where you proclaim to your people, I have been anointed by God, and watch me as I blacken out the sun. And at one point, all of your subjects or people are watching you, and you raise your hand and you lean over to that priest next to you and you say, "You better be right, because if you're wrong, we're all dead." Because, of course, as you look through the priesthoods of all of the ancient religions, that, they have always kind of been in power in one form or another, back to semantics. Then you raise your hand as this fearless leader, and lo and behold, the heavenly sun is blackened out, and all of your subjects or your devotees gasp and say, "This guy must be anointed by God." And thus the power and the rulers start taking their place. And you can find this all the way back to ancient Egypt, and even further back with Abram before his passing of the test of God, and became Abraham, because Abram was from ancient.
Yeah, he was from the village of Ur. I believe Abram came from Ur, which is part of, it's still an area. There's ziggurats and all kinds of things in ancient Iraq, ancient Sumer. Actually, it was of Ur. And that's where Abram was from. A lot of ancient stuff out there. That makes me suspicious about the whole fight for Iran. This, I was talking to Lake about this. They really want to get into Iran. They want to bomb Iran. They want war with Iran. It's, there's something that's drawing the powers of the world to these ancient areas. And, we've heard speculation and talk about what was in Iraq, ancient Sumer, and some of the things. And some of the talk about ISIS, what they were doing is going around these historical sites. They said they were damaging them. They were actually looking for things, looting them. I think they were actually looking for ancient artifacts that somebody wanted them to take by force. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And if you look into the series of the Indiana Jones theories, they will kind of placate to that same theory. And if you look at the actuality of it, when the war occurred in Iraq, and they went to the museums, stole the ancient cuneiform scrolls, and then did the same in Egypt. If you look at what they have discovered in Egypt in comparison of the total amount of knowledge, they think that they've only uncovered less than 10% of ancient Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
And of ancient Iraq, they're thinking they've only undiscovered like 3%. And if you look at Saddam Hussein, some people claim that he made the proclamation that he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, because he was going back and furnishing the ancient places of worship that were known by Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, ancient Babylon itself. He had a project to restore the hanging gardens of Babylon. He literally was financially preparing to do that in Babylon, ancient Babylon, right there, ancient Baghdad area. And the whole thing about during the war, they looted all of these sites. This is known. But then what ISIS did, especially in Syria and Iraq, where they took over certain areas. And not only did they take them over, they went into ancient sites. And, there was famous videos of them smashing up ancient artifacts, etc. And people were appalled. But what a lot of people don't realize, they were actually using explosives like dynamite and heavy equipment and digging beneath these sites. Now, when this was discovered, especially in like Palmyra and all these areas of Syria that they went into, the damage that they did, people were wondering, and the excuse they gave them was like, oh, they were looking for hidden gold underneath these sites. BS. They were looking for something specific, and this operation was bigger than people realized. This was like a Dr. Evil type operation, and ISIS was a paid force to do this. And these guys were getting a lot of money for this, because why in the heck would a bunch of rebel fighters want to have backhoes and track machines and dynamite and dig underneath ancient sites whenever, allegedly they were trying to fight for freedom? No, they were looking for something specific, something that was so valuable to someone who was funding all of this that they would do anything to get to it, including devastating entire populations and going in, taking over areas, and under the guise of terroristic acts, destroy ancient temples to find what was beneath them.
Right. And then this goes back into the same game, same board, where if you look at where some people believe the Knights Templar prior to the Masonic and the Illuminati, the Knights Templar, where 9 French knights went to these ancient places, Jerusalem and stuff, and allegedly set up camp at King Solomon's temple, and were known to be excavating and digging beneath the temples looking for something. And lo and behold, at some point, they did find something that gave them enough strength to all of a sudden become one of the most powerful forces in Europe at the time.
Oh, yeah. Most powerful forces in the world. And, what happened? The King of France, whenever he took them out, and basically along with the Pope, made them a criminal organization, persecuted them, stole all their wealth for their own financial gain, the King of France, to do so. The theory is that the Templars loaded up ships and headed out and hid, these treasures allegedly on Oak Island up in Nova Scotia area, that where possibly this treasure, this unknown treasure of the Knights Templar is hidden. I don't know, but see, this whole thing, we're getting back to May 1st and these powers, this group of individuals who feel that they have the authority and the right to, control humanity. They want as much power as they can get, and they get it in all types of nefarious ways. We get into the talk of the bloodletting and the endocrine and all of this crazy stuff that goes with it. They're searching for immortality. They're searching for the ultimate power. And what it is, they don't realize, NeSe, is that what they're looking for, they already have. They're like a bunch of monkeys. They're like a bunch of Neanderthals scraping around looking for light, or looking for fire, whenever the fire's within. The knowledge they seek, they already have. But like monkeys, they're scratching. Well, I take that back, because I think monkeys may be even smarter than that. Seriously, dude. But they're looking for something to give them power, and they search the world for it, and they let blood destroy nations and civilizations for something that, if they only knew it, they already possess.
Right. And then if we talk about the whole thing of history repeating itself, and we look back further, where this whole powers that should not be have constantly handed down the power from one generation to the next generation. And then we look at in the Hebrew religion, where after the Hebrew religion finalized the original 4 books of the Old Testament to then become the Torah, because the Hebrew people were at war with themselves. And all of the priesthood got together and said, look, we need to stop killing each other and agree what our holy scripture is. And then they came and they decided what their Torah was, which is our Old Testament. And then all of a sudden there's this writing of the New Testament, where you start looking into Kabbalahism, where, there's some claims that the Kabbalah teaching is the secret messages within the Holy Scriptures. But then all of a sudden, as the progress of power went from Egypt to Greece and then to Rome, and then in Rome, when all of a sudden there was so much diversity and the challenge of trying to get that new world order, we have Constantine, who, for whatever reason, all of a sudden declares the empire now is Christendom. And this is where we get the birth of more and more teachings of Christ. And then the Holy Roman Church starts.
Well, this continues on. You're talking about ancient Judaism, and they were fighting amongst themselves. Every group, every religion does this. Look, Catholicism Protestants and Catholics. The fight. Look at Ireland. Look what happened over there. Protestants and Catholics. Look at the Reformation. Look at all of these things. Judaism still fighting with itself. Look at Israel, the protests that happened between different groups, and look at the Hasidic Jews, how they fight the Zionists. And that's an interesting thing in itself. That's a whole topic in itself, where you see the Hasidics who actually come out and protest against Zionism, which is like modern, Israel, the Zionist. And, so there's this division that you were talking about still exists. And in all factions, look at every nation fighting amongst itself. Look at this nation. My God, Republican, Democrat, it's a mess. It's such a mess. They try every trick they can to divide one against the other to get their own way. And see, here's the sad thing about all of it. All these battles we're talking about, all these, divisions and fights for power, again, just right back to like the searching for these artifacts. It's there. People already have it. If people would accept that we all have it and say, oh, we don't need to fight each other for it, we already got it, and just let it be, then there would be peace. We would progress. But people are continually looking outward for something that they have inward.
Well, and as we follow the progression of this historical facts of what we know, as the church progressed and as the Knights Templars progressed, and then the Crusades occurred, where they kept trying to go back to the ancient cities for whatever reason. I believe it is still looking for that historical wisdom and artifacts. And then, as you stated, the Pope of the Church and the King of France declared this, and if you look more into it, I believe it was to take all of the Templars' money and wealth and gold, where we got.
That's exactly what it was. France was in trouble financially, and it's like, wow, what do we do? And they're totally surrounded by all of these Knights Templar who had castles and people around them. They were extremely wealthy, all of these guys. And so that was the scheme, like, oh yeah, if we could only get their money. So that's exactly what it was about, was taking their wealth and funding.
Well, I would even go a little bit further to add into there that it was just like we have today, where these elitists or these powers that should not be have fighting amongst the ranks, where they're constantly willing to throw each other to the dogs to get the golden ticket or grab the brass ring or to wear the crown. And so then when this occurred, because if you do look at, I want to say 1717 is when there was a great outcry in Europe where some of the documents of the alleged Illuminati were found. And in these documents, they claimed one of their greatest goals, along with the division, was to destroy organized religion. And so that would definitely be course for the church to be, going after these people, even if it was in the beginning of its creation about people illuminating their consciousness, their knowledge, their wisdom to help the betterment of all of us. I agree with that philosophy, but there is no justification of the means to the ends where it is killing people or dominating people or enslaving people.
That's true. But that is the pattern they have followed. We're rolling up on a break right now. We'll continue this topic and a few more things, maybe get some of the news of the day. Maybe not. Because I tell you what, the news of yesterday is the news of today, because history repeats itself and historical replication. And by understanding the past, we can see where we're at right now and the direction that we might possibly be going. That's very important, Paul. Anyway, don't go away. We'll be back.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Here we are, May 1st. Happy May Day, May Day. This is a call of distress. Hang your flags upside down because the world is just like it, upside down. And I'm just saying, in an insane world, that we are here, Phoenix Rising Radio, with the hostess with the mostest, Phoenix.
And I'm saying go outside, take your flags back down, turn them up the right way and run them up, because if they want us to turn them upside down because of May Day, we're going to say it's heyday. Let's make hay. Make hay while the sun shines. This is the whole thing. They want this energetic out there. They put this out, this information, of like they're powerful and ooh, they do these things. And they do. The weird thing about it is we're in an energetic right now that, and we just had a full moon. I almost asked you if you saw the full moon. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But I'll ask our listeners, did you see the full moon? It was beautiful, and it'll probably be full again. Well, it is full again tonight, but Jupiter was right beside it, and it was in Libra. So in the scales of justice, hanging in the scales of justice, and it's a time for justice. And energetically, things are turning around and these energies are changing. I had a friend of mine, and I know you personally, NeSe, and myself, but a friend of mine just told me, man, he goes, just out of the blue. And he doesn't follow the energetic stuff like we do, but he does. He's starting to. And he said, April was really a bad month. He goes, there were some really bad energies. I had to deal with this. And he actually had to get some healing, which is really just like blew my mind when I found out he did, because of the energies were so heavy. And they work with these energies. Laura Walker of the Oracle Report tells us about this, and she's the one who discovered that they use this Black Moon Eris point, and they do all these energetic things. And they've used this just like searching for ancient artifacts. They've taken ancient knowledge, which would be something really good, and used it for something not so good, or tried to enhance their power. It's almost like gunpowder. The Chinese discovered gunpowder, and they used it for fireworks. They used it for pyrotechnics. They used it for useful things, and then somebody's like, hey, I can put it in this steel tube, and look what I can do. I can push something deadly at the end. So they take energies and powers and use them for nefarious reasons. So we're in a real energetic time here, and Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Like I said, over in Europe right now, I'm sure there's things going on. Last night, Mayday Eve, Beltane, and I guess Beltane continues into Mayday, and they're basically feasting upon these powers. It can be a good thing. I mean, we're in the energies right now where we're rolling into a good time. Here in the northeastern United States, May, April showers bring May flowers, which is a good thing, which is what we need to see. Oh, speaking of, dude, you'll never believe what happened right before I went on the air. Oh man, we have this like little pot.
Wait, let me guess.
Yeah, go ahead. What happened?
You slipped and fell, and somebody went to catch you, and in them reaching out to catch you, they accidentally knocked over a bowl that had some cannabis truffles in it, and it landed in your mouth, and you are happiest as you can be here tonight on the show.
Oh my God. How did you know that? But you missed the part about the elephant. No.
I'm psychotic. I mean, psychic. Psychic, sorry.
You're not psychic. You are psychotic. No, that's not what happened. Outside, okay, behind me. I'm in my studio here. Behind me, there's another room, and it was a window open. I thought, okay, I need to close this window to reduce all noise that I can. And it was just like minutes before I was getting ready to go in the air. And I had this little pot. I had bought these two little things of basil. It's like a basil kit, I don't know, weeks ago. They've been batting around here, and finally the weather changed. I'm like, hey, let's do this. And so I got the soil going, I got the seeds and everything. And I don't know, it's just a little pot of basil. It had been outside today, but we brought it in because we were afraid it was going to fall over, right? It can't be outside, it'll fall over. So we bring it inside, put it on a windowsill, and I go to close this window, and I see it. And I'm like, oh, I got to scoot this back. And I scooted it back, went to close the window, and it caught the lip of the pot and threw this pot of moist potting soil and all these seeds that were about to germinate all over the floor. I'm like, oh my God. And it was like 3 minutes before I had to go in the air. And so I real quick, sweeped it up. Man, I tell you what, it's just like, Lake came in. She goes, you're in a bad mood. I'm like, well, I just knocked over the entire pot of basil. And I know it's something silly. It's like little seeds, but, and that's the thing. That's what happens. We have hopes and dreams, little seeds that we plant. We take care of them. We hope for them. And when we see these little seeds of these plants knocked awry, sometimes it isn't by someone not, calculating exactly how far to pull back a pot to close a window. It's by the powers that be. These very powers that you started talking about, they knock the pot over, man. They knock our hope over. They knock over, the people for the ability for people to financially improve themselves or physically improve themselves through, the screwed up pharmaceutical system, and by suppressing alternative science, energies, and things like that. So, just another energy. I just wanted to share that story because I couldn't believe it, dude. I mean, of all times. During the break, I told Lake, I'm sorry I got upset. She goes, it's okay. I'm like, no. Because, man, I just never. I really, really, really watch my temper. No, I do. I just okay, you got to take control of this, and it's not like I fly off the handle or anything, but it's just I try to maintain an energetic, even keeled all the time. And I couldn't believe it. And I knocked that over. I'm like, son of a bleep. Like, you got to
Well,
be kidding me.
I would absolutely agree that spilling pot on the floor is never a happy experience.
Yeah, and that's the same kind of pot we're talking about. I know. Anyway, back into the topic. You know, this whole thing, this energetic of Beltane and the deep state. Now, the talk of the deep state with Q and the millions of people following this right now, or hundreds of thousands. I don't know if it's millions. And this whole effort, this energetic effort of becoming aware of the deep state, the dark side, and it's an extremely dark side because of the nefarious things they've done and the evil things they do, because they feed allegedly off of the fear of people, fear of children. There's bloodletting. There's all of this. This is where these blood sacrifices come from. This is an ancient thing, this entire letting of blood and blood sacrifices, because I will guarantee you, people, they just didn't kill people and let the blood flow. They collected that blood, and then they made like Dracula. And
well, would you not agree that it is just, I believe, kind of nefarious if you think that right after you die, what's the first thing they do is drain you of your blood?
Yeah, dude, that's weird in itself. There's a lot of weird things happening in what they call modern science too. They're doing with blood of people, and I disagree with it highly, because I think it can all be misused. I don't want to say that everything is being abused and misused, but a lot of times these things are done under the cover of humanitarianism or medical issues. I mean, look what happened in Haiti after the Haitian earthquake. They went in to save the children, and a lot of people got arrested for like smuggling and child trafficking. They were like gathering kids together whose parents were, missing or whatever, and it was all done under humanitarianism, and people even donated to these people, and they were taking these kids out of the country to never be seen again.
Well, it's really ironic that you brought that up. Just the other day, I was revisiting Mr. Smith Goes to Hollywood, and I literally think in this movie that they were throwing out there the underlining message about the senators and their little page boys.
Oh,
because
yeah.
if you look at the history, and this is still going on today, that they have these little page boys that are working in the halls of our Capitol. And if you look at the revealing of the homosexual, and please don't take it at anything else than the fact that they were homosexual prostitutes that were caught getting late night visits in the White House.
Oh, yeah. Dude, there's people forget Senator Barney Frank. He's no longer in Washington, but he was for years. He actually got caught. He had a brownstone in D.C. that he was actually running a page boy male prostitution ring out of. He got caught. He was actually charging other senators and congressmen to come there, and they were actually having sex with young boys, pages, and it was a homosexual prostitution ring of pages in Washington, D.C. by Senator Barney Frank. And dude, do you know what? This is when Clinton was president. Guess what happened to Senator Barney Frank when he got caught? Guess what they did to him?
Excused him and gave him a nice cushy retirement and sent him on his way.
No, they gave him a very harsh reprimand in writing, and that was it. And he continued on. He was re-voted in for I don't know how many terms. The guy just recently left. I mean, a while, like at the end of Obama's term. But he was head of a lot of commissions, and he was actually a member of an organization called MAMBLA. Have you ever heard of MAMBLA? Called
Oh, yes. Yes.
Love Association, and they have a slogan, and the slogan is "Eight's too late." Now they used to be very open about it before the internet. They would run around. They had these little Mambla buttons that were a triangle, and like a triangle thing, and guys would actually wear these in Congress and Senate. People would see them on Capitol Hill. Nobody knew what they were until they were exposed. It's like, yeah, that's the symbol for Mambla. That's where they were identifying each other. So, yeah, and dig this. Whenever they were talking about, they recently found a slush fund in Congress that was used to pay off sexual misconduct law cases. When people would accuse people, Congress and Senate, of sexual misconduct, they actually had a slush fund set up of taxpayers' money where they would pay people off and pay for their legal fees. And it was a hidden secret thing. Well, that recently came out a few months ago. But not only that, it also came out that there was a rule, and I don't know if it's still in effect, but the staffers on Washington, D.C., like when you talk about pages, and there's male and female pages, and young volunteer staffers, they call them White House and congressional and senatorial staffers. These people come in sometimes on volunteer basis or very low money, and they do all these things for Congress and Senate. They are not covered under the sexual harassment thing, and they have no ability or legal right to file any claims or any complaints against anyone. So if one of those young men or women are raped by a congressman or senator, they do not even have the legal right or authority to report it. Dude, can you believe that? And this was just found out this year that this was going on. Can you believe this?
Right. Well, if you go back and as we talk about the Illuminati and the history of it all, one of the prerequisites of being in the Illuminati was openly known sodomy. And that was one of the charges that was brought up by the king and the Pope at the time when they went after the Freemasons. And I think it was like 40 some leaders of the Freemasons at the time, and their grand poobah, Jacques screwing his name, de Molay. Thank you.
Jacques de Molay, yeah.
And then, like Phoenix was saying earlier, where all of a sudden, before that morning, the largest known maritime fleet disappeared out of France. And then lo and behold, shortly after, some of them, 2/3, show up in the United Kingdom, where 1/3 went to Scotland and then 1/3 went to England. And allegedly the other third went into the Caribbeans and along the coast of North America, and where we got the pirates from, the Skull and Bones.
Well, I tell you what, also Switzerland. Look at Switzerland. Look at the Swiss flag. The Swiss flag is basically the Templar flag, and it was a mountainous region that they went into, and they were warriors, and they're still warriors. I mean, the people of Switzerland's an interesting place. It's the financial hub of the world, if you will. The secret Swiss bank accounts for centuries were well known. They've tried to crack down on them, but that was the banking center of the world. Okay, that would lead itself to the Templars. The flag, now dead giveaway there, and the fact that they're warrior people and very exclusive. You just can't, they don't have an immigration problem in Switzerland because you can't go there. I mean, it's really hard to get into Switzerland and become a citizen. There are really strict things they have to do. And also, they're still a warrior society. Every man, woman in Switzerland, if you're physically able, you do military training. And if you're not even physically able to do some military training, you do a certain type, like a clerk or whatever, or supply. But everybody does this, and everyone trains on weapons. And up until like, oh my God, I think it's like 60 years of age, everyone's considered to be part of the reserve in Switzerland. And not only after you do your training, your mandatory military training, you take home your weapon. No matter what it is, if it's a modern military weapon like they're giving now, you go home with it. That's yours. When you get issued your weapon, every man, woman in Switzerland, when you get issued your military weapon, that is your weapon. And it's actually your responsibility to maintain it. You take it home, even after you're out of the military, and you put it someplace safe. And then once a year, they have to go out and sight their weapon in, do weapons training, range qualification, zero their weapon, and to show that they're still proficient with it, and their weapon gets inspected to make sure it's well maintained. And it's like that from like after you leave the military, what would you be, like 19, 20 years old, all the way until you're 60 years old. So you have an entire society in this mountainous region that's very wealthy, very exclusive, that are extremely armed, and every single person there, men and women, have a weapon in their house, and they know how to use it, and they're proficient with it to the day. Also, an interesting thing, whenever people vote in Switzerland, they have to have a weapon with them. Now, most people don't carry a firearm with them. Most people carry like a little small dagger, ceremonial, but you are not allowed, according to the law in Switzerland, to actually vote unless you are armed. And if you show up at the polling place and you're not armed with it, as much as a pocket knife, you can't vote. And the reason they do that is because only free people can vote, and only free people can be armed. And that's the way it is, dude.
Right, and then the Swiss flag, isn't that the cross?
Exactly. It's
the Maltese cross.
It's like the Templars. It's like the Templar flag. You know.
Right.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they're a warrior society that concentrates around massive wealth of the world.
And interesting, as you go back into the history of the Illuminati and you look at the Bavarians, and if you look at the royal families and how these royal families also followed these Knights Templars, where these original banking institutions like the Rothschilds, that came from the Red Shield, which came from the Bowers, and then you follow the blood lineage of England and the royal family, and you find them all being tied into each other. Then lo and behold, as time progresses, we get Christopher Columbus and the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. And what was their big, huge sails? What symbol did they have on those big, huge sails there, Phoenix?
Oh, yeah, that's the Templar's cross, the Red Cross, the Cross of Malta.
And this was the rediscovery of America. And here we are now today in America, where we see the banking influence is still as strong and deep stated as it ever was.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, there's a battle going on right now of the elite fighting amongst themselves. The Rothschilds, Lindy Rothschild, she was all for Hillary Clinton. You know, she is for us and all this. You know, they thought they had her in the bag. And if Hillary would have got in, should have been a Rothschild puppet all the way and did their bidding. And they were so anti-Trump. So we have a battle going on right now amongst the elite. And you can't look at it any other way. I believe, though, what we're seeing is a group, and what we've heard and what we're learning is that it was a group of military individuals that actually went to Trump and said, hey, listen, we want you to be president because we need to take this down, and it's going to be quite a task. We need somebody who can deal with it. And that's why the establishment was so against him, even the Republicans. I mean, my God, the Bushes, seriously? All the Bushes. We have a guy who comes out. He's running Republican. He brings in more people, a larger base than any Republican in history. my God, he was having rallies where 45,000 people would show up, 20,000, 30,000, 45,000. He just did a rally the other day, and he's been in for a year, and there were thousands of people inside, and there were 3 times that amount outside, and some of the people stood in line since 4 o'clock in the morning. So he really like regenerized people, and for this so-called Republican leadership to say, "Oh, heck no, we don't want this guy," shows you that they're really not about what they claim to be about, because they knew he was not part of the system and he was going to try to fight the system. They probably even had intel that there were generals behind him. So that's why there was so much never Trumpers, ever. And they did the whole media thing, the comedians and all this, Illuminati, a CIA Mockingbird thing against him. And it continues on. He's not a perfect guy. Absolutely not, but it looks like he is the top guy for the fight against this cabal. And people are trying, if they can pull this off and they can get these guys allegedly with these 19,000 indictments, the sealed indictments they have. And he is doing a lot. I mean, dude, just the number of pedophiles and pedophile rings that have been arrested in the past 12 months is mind-boggling. And it's not reported by the mainstream news, but they've thousands of 1,000 people here, 500 here, and they're going after these pedophile rings. And look at like the one that was just exposed, the girl from Smallville, the thing on TV where they had the sex slave ring, and then the Weinstein thing. So a lot of this stuff is being exposed. And again, going back to the energetics of this, like Laura Walker says, these people, this cabal is going down. This is the year for it, but it's not going to be without a fight. So, dude, I really think, and I know it's hard to believe, I know you have a hard time believing this sometimes, but I think we're watching a battle at a large scale. And all this stuff we're talking about, the Illuminati, and the powers that should not be, you call it, there's a battle going on against them. And it's interesting to watch this all play out. We got a couple minutes before we go to break.
Well, and as I keep bringing up the history and we keep progressing into America and stuff, then all of a sudden we have Albert Pike, who all of a sudden finds himself high ranking in not only the Masonic lodges, but in the creation of the KKK and being part of the Illuminati, and his whole banking war, where the banks were trying to decide who were going to rule all. And next thing you know, we have the Civil War in the United States, where the bankers, and like we've discussed, the powers that should not be throw each other to the dogs. And then in the prevailing of it all, we have the development of America, and then we have these great colleges and universities to where the elites can educate more elites. And then we get to the pirates, the Skull and Bones, the Black Flag. And then when you look at the Skull and Bones and how they have permeated every facet of Washington and the banks and corporations, especially if you look at Father Bush bringing in, I think it was 6, maybe less than 6 members of his cabinet were all Skull and Bones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're like 30 minutes away, or 30 seconds away from break here. Yeah, we'll talk more about this on the other side and kind of tie all this into what's going on today. It's all related. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this break.
Come back here.
Hi, everyone. It's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones, obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Welcome to Phoenix Rising Radio. Now is the time to lift your mind higher. Now is the time to rise above. I am your host, Phoenix, and welcome to tonight's broadcast.
And welcome back to the second hour of Phoenix Rising Radio, right here on TFR, Truth Frequency Radio, where truth is premier. And truth is so important. Speaking of, be sure to go to truthiswellness.com, truthiswellness.com, and be sure and see what we have over there for you, information. Also, click on the free ebook from Boomers Forever Young. Spoke to Bob Gilpatrick from Boomers today. He'll be on next Thursday, not this Thursday. He had something unexpected come up. He was supposed to be on this Thursday, but he will be on next Thursday. So be sure and tune in for that. You know, NeSe, before we get back into the topics we're talking about, did you not tell me that your daughter was in a play?
Oh, yes. My daughter Infinity was a lead in the play The Miracle Worker. If you know the story, that's the story of Anne Sullivan and her challenge of teaching Helen Keller, a blind, deaf, mute child, how to open up to the world, and taught her sign language, and they were dear friends for many years. And my daughter got the lead part of Anne Sullivan and knocked it out of the ballpark, and I'm so proud of her.
Very cool. You know, you had told me something about this interesting. There's an interesting twist to all of this, everybody. Okay, some people know, most people know NeSe's interesting situation, but some don't. And some apparently didn't, who were associated with this play. Tell everybody what happened. And with the people once she got the part to the play and what they found out.
Well, what I did tell my daughter what she should do for her audition is to walk in there and say, "My name is Infinity Shores, and this role is very important to me because," and then start crying and explaining to them that her father is blind, and then get really emotional into it, and then at one point just bow her head and then look up and say, "Scene." But they did eventually find out that I was blind, and it even took it to a higher level to some of the directors and the adults that were involved with it, because it gave them a new understanding of where she dug for the performance. You know, so she was able to utilize her entire life of dealing with, you know, daddy losing his sight. So, which she's done remarkable too.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Crazy story, amazing story. Congratulations that your daughter did that and did so well. It's really cool. But getting back, speaking about blindness, we're talking about a majority of the public blind to the situation that they're in. This isn't a new thing either, man. This has been a state that they've kept people in for the longest time, and there's a battle going on right now. You know, I'm looking at some of the new Q stuff here, and everyone's watching, everyone's hanging on, everyone has been given hope that possibly this deep state that we're aware of, like the stuff you're talking about, the stuff I'm talking about, our listeners are hanging on, listening to. People know this. People know it to different degrees, to different amounts. It's called being red-pilled. You know, like in the Matrix, do you take the blue pill and go back to sleep, or do you take the red pill and go down the rabbit hole? You know, people are taking the red pill and finding out what's going on. And it's not what they thought. And when we expose this controlling elite who have controlled humanity for millennia on and off to different degrees, you know, people are also given this hope that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that we can break free from some of this, even if it's for a short while. And, you know, I share that hope. I know you do too. I know it's hard for you because a lot of people have just become so jaded, especially the more they have fought. As people get red pilled, they realize what's going on. They do things. They become activists. They talk about it. And then when they see nothing changing and they see people don't care, people become jaded. People think nothing will ever change. And I know you've expressed that yourself right here on the air, and other people have too. But now there's hope. People have some hope. But you know what? Hope deferred makes the heart sick. We need to see some action, baby. We need to see some unsealed indictments. We need to see something happen. And, you know, anybody who's related with Q, you need to do something now. Now, I know he did. Q said, you know, now it's the time for justice. And we are in this energetic of justice right now. As a matter of fact, I was talking about the full moon. And the full moon, if you looked up and saw the full moon and you saw what looked like a bright star near it last night or the night before, that was the planet Jupiter. And Jupiter was conjunct the moon, and also in the constellation of Libra early in the morning, of the scales of justice. And this is a prime indicator of the law of justice, of things coming around. So, you know, the hope of seeing some justice in this great unjust system that we've all lived under for centuries, there is hope. And we have energetic hope from above, and we have some power from the universe to help with this.
Well, you know, to add with all of this on the conversation and what you're talking about, in this existence, when something is created, it has a holy trinity to it, where it can be utilized for positiveness or negativeness, or not utilized at all, so it's neutral. Just as everything in this world is like a magnet, where we too, in this creation, can be positive, negative, or neutral. Unfortunately, as we discussed with power and the challenge of ego, when these people start standing up and going for these position of powers, and I'd like to believe that when people get into this activism and wanting to change things to the positiveness, that they went into it with the intentions of such positiveness. But when we get into that ego and we get offered to come to Washington disease, and they have all of these parties, and in these parties they have all of these drinks and libations, and next thing you know, people started, you know, saying yes to this and yes to that, to their lust and their desires, and the powers that should not be placate on that. And then they do whatever they can to say, look, we got some videotape of you, or we've infiltrated the church. And when people have been confessing their sins forever, especially the elitists and the power-strucken, they utilize it against them to gain control and to remain in control. But just like that fluctuation of the magnet, we have the ability of being positive and negative. But as you stated, there has to be a precursor, or as the metaphor or the cliche of energy cannot be destroyed, it can just be transferred. And so when are we going to take the moment to say, this is the now, and in this moment, I am making the choice to be the change for the positive. And if you are not going to make that decision, then please make the decision to be neutral and don't do anything.
Yeah,
Don't do nothing.
wise advice. And we all have that ability. You know, I was just thinking about it while you're talking. We're in a transitionary period right now. And people can feel it. That's why people have been having trouble with the energies, frustration, fears. I think April, a lot of people had fears. And what it is, it's almost like a test. It's almost like the universe saying which direction you're going, because we're all being winnowed down, dude. We're all being winnowed down. And that's a part of life school, like who's going to progress to the next level. And when you truly do progressions of from this level to this level to this level, not everybody goes. You know, there's all this BS about everybody's a winner. That's not true. You know, this great injustice we've done to children in this country, that everybody wins. You know, everybody gets a trophy. There are no losers. That's not reality. Natural selection and the energetic selection, even the spiritual selection, we either pass or fail. And I know that sounds harsh, especially if you're like a soccer mom or something. You either win or you lose. And, you know, this is something that I think the powers that be shouldn't be are trying to take away from the society, because they don't want people to know this. They don't want people to be strong. And, you know, whenever you were saying we have these choices, like, you know, whenever I knocked the pot over right before the show, dude, that threw me in. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But I actually had to stop and like, no, my energy is not going in that direction. You know, my energy is positive. And no, I will not accept that my energy is negative, even if someone or the whole world says no. Oh, well, you're not doing right, or oh, this isn't going well for you. No, you have the ability as a human being to say, you know, even if I had a moment, I stop that moment right now, and that's not me. That's not the direction I'm going in, because I'm a victor. You know, I'm going to be victorious in this, and I'm going to rise above this. I know you don't like the term of being a warrior, but I'll use it anyway. Warrior, warrior, warrior. We all have to be warriors. And I'm not talking about being violent. I'm talking about battling through. I'm talking about battling through negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative feelings, and negative thought forms and waveforms. And that's the big thing, dude. And you know this, and everybody listening right now knows this, that human beings, we have the ability to play these things in our mind and start imagining BS and actually portraying these negative images in our minds, almost like a movie of where things are going. And what I call that is anti-faith, because faith is feeling and knowing of something good and positive, and you know that you feel it. It's the third key in the three keys to heaven. You know it. Faith is feeling, and worry and fear is anti-faith. So just like if you visualize and feel things with a faithful, joyous attitude, and you energetically, because of that energy, you bring it to light, you can do the same thing on the negative side. So fear, doubt, and bad imagination is anti-faith. Anti-faith. That's exactly what it is, because it will bring things to life also. And this is proven. You know, basically, what all I just said in the past 3-4 minutes can be summed up in seek and ye shall find. Whatever you're looking for, what you're imagining in your mind, you're going to find it. You are going to find it, baby. It is going to be there for you. So really control your thoughts and rise above all of this.
Well, absolutely. And now in this technological advanced age where we have information at our fingertips, you would have to be, I think, a little ignorant or blindly or purposely not looking at the fact that the powers that should not be are going to purposely put out information to keep you from finding their secrets. And this is one of the nefarious things that these people do, because as you stated, if they can keep us in a realm of fear and distraction, because that's where the neutrality of it comes, that if we're just sitting in front of Netflix and we've been binge watching, or we sit in front of our video games, and please don't take it that, you do need time to unplug. You need to decompress. You need to take the tea kettle off the stove at one point or another, but it's when you take the perspective and step back at where you are in the moment and decide, am I doing something positive or negative? And I love the thought of when we go to bed that we think of something of, have I done enough today that grants me to be worthy of waking up tomorrow? Because if we go to bed tonight and children are starving in our neighborhood, in our community and stuff, we're not winning people.
That's true. But see, here's the trick to this. That is a potential downfall of feeling bad. So what you do, let's say that you followed that technique and you actually did what NeSe did, and you laid down and thought, did I do something worthy today? If you saw yourself doing something, interacting with someone, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, what you need to do is to rewrite that. And this can work. What you do is basically change it in your mind and visualize how it would be if you would have done the correct thing, if you would have said the right thing, if you would have done the right thing, and feel how that feels, and send an apology out energetically to the universe, to that person, that you didn't really mean to not be there for them or say that or whatever. You intended this, and visualize it being that way. And you can literally change things in a big way. This has been known, it's proven. This is scientifically accurate. We can change our reality, dude. That we are in a matrix, and we can control that matrix. And that's what they don't want people to know.
Well, that's the same as when we discuss about, learning our history so we don't repeat it. When we settle ourselves down for the evening and we reflect of the history of the day, and we recollect our actions, and then we modify, or we redirect, or we realign, or set our course to adjust it to that goal. And hopefully, as we've stated before, that goal is in positive in its nature. Because we, just as much as we have nothing to do, we have everything to do, because the energies will fluctuate. They will go through the stages of the Holy Trinity of positive, negative, and neutral. Now, where we find the assistance or the ability to give it a little extra push into the positive, here is the $1 million question. How?
By just doing it. That's how. And that's the answer to the $1 million question, is you calm yourself and you say, no, I will not be negative. I will be positive. It requires intestinal fortitude. It requires resolve. It requires you as a human being being responsible for your own actions, being responsible for your own words, and being willing to man or woman up to them and say, you know what, I was wrong and I apologize. And you can say that either to an individual or the universe or to yourself. Sometimes the person you have to apologize to is yourself, and say, I'm not like that. I'm going to be, and I am like this. And you determine how your energy will be, how your energy will flow, and whom you are. And that's it. This is life school, people. This is life school. This is a test. This is a test. And you are going to be graded on this, and you will either pass or fail. I know that sounds harsh, but welcome to reality. And the more we learn at life school, the more we can learn to accept the lessons and correct them, the higher we go and the higher we ascend. And that's the way this works.
Right. And as this whole progression of history occurs, we get the creation of the political parties, and we have time progressing on, and Washington disease continues to grow in their division and in their assistance of this New World Order, this Illuminati agenda, semantics, Bilderbergers, Trilateral Commission, Council of Foreign Relations, Jesuits, Jews, the blue people, the red people, they've infiltrated every aspect of it. And so we're here today in our existence. And as we look at Washington disease and we see all of these politicians that have been there for way too long, and this is where we have the term deep state, of these people that have been there too long and not wanting to give up the power. And as much as I'd like to believe that Trump is the real deal, I have always stated, if you're that deep into politics, I can't believe that that is the case. All I believe now is that the dogs are throwing each other to the dogs, and Trump just happened to find the trunk filled with all of the closets of all of the politicians in Washington, so he now has the power to control them all. But the latest thing about Trump, where my challenge is they just announced, and I said this before, that Trump and his administration want to get rid of the reservations.
They actually announced that they want to get rid of the reservations?
That they're talking about getting rid of the reservations and the Native Americans just becoming another ethnicity of the United States. And
I think that would be against some of the contractual things. And the first thing that came to mind when you said that was him calling Kim Jong-un, little rocket man, and how he was going to do all this. And look what happened there. This guy is the master of playing people. Man, this guy plays people big time. And I could see him saying that to get the discussion out there, to get people talking about it. Because to say, oh, we want to get rid of the reservations, it makes people think and say, wait a minute. What do you mean get rid of the reservations? And it makes everyone look into it. And what they're actually doing is drawing attention to the reservations, what the reservations really were, where they came from, and all of that. So I don't know, man. It could, have some faith there and hang in there. Consider that comment no different than I will bomb little rocket man and my button's bigger than his, because look what's happening there. Dude, it's amazing. I know you visually can't see it, but the images coming out of South Korea and North Korea are amazing. I mean, these guys are just like, they're going for peace all the way. Denuclearization. They're going to remove the United States military from South Korea. So whenever you hear that about the reservations, pay attention to it, and I can understand that. But again, the first thing that came to man was little rocket man. And because everybody, whenever he started doing that, are like, he's going to cause nuclear war. We're all, all this is going to happen, and this, and millions of people are going to die in South Korea, and all this. And it was all play, because while he was saying that, Pompeo was over there in North Korea secretly meeting with him and having talks. So, I think it's kind of cool. I personally, about historical replication, if they're talking about getting rid of the reservations and Trump's involved in this, I take that as a good thing and look at, if anything, it's going to revitalize everything and change the entire program for the better, the way it should be.
Well, if you look at the dialectic, where, in the 80s, they did the slight focus of the World Trade Center, and then more and more direction are pointing at the World Trade Center. I think this is part of the whole dialectic of Standing Rock and the reservations, and starting to get the focus to look more and more at the reservations, because you can find the money trail of Standing Rock, the pipelines, and Trump.
Interesting. We will be right back after this break. Don't go away, everyone.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
I think, therefore I am that I am, and we should stop and take a look at what's going down, where we take the moment to realize where we are and to be here in the moment to make a new course of direction. And that direction would be to be here at Truth Frequency Radio on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the Phoenix Rising Show, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, where you get your fill of Phoenix and the naysayer of naysaying, NeSe.
Very good. Thank you. You know, just kind of looking at this, I saw some news here. 65% of public school 8th graders not proficient in reading, and 67% not proficient in math. Wow, that is such a shame. You know, a lot of people back over a century ago, 8th grade was like where a lot of people graduated. They went to 8th grade, they learned reading, writing, and arithmetic and English, and that was it. And then they went back into the work field, unless they went to higher education. But can you imagine what our country would be like if 120 or 150 years ago, 65% of the public school 8th graders couldn't read? I mean, or only proficient. Not 65 couldn't read. Only 65% are proficient in reading. That would be such a shame.
Well, you know, we've talked about it before with that Common Core and math and how they're deliberately dumbing down our children, and they're trying to keep that divide between the parents and the kids. Because if we were any smarter, we would not let them be in power right now. But with this consistent of lowering standards, you know, what is it now that the newspapers are written on a 6th grade level?
Wow. Yeah. No surprise there, and understandable. You know, we've had this conversation before. It's such a shame. It's the deliberate dumbing down of the population. This whole everybody wins thing. You know, dude, whenever I was young in school, you could actually fail a grade, where you would have your testing and everything. And I mean, like 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, all the way up, every single grade. I don't care what grade, to elementary, middle school, high school. If you did not proficiently pass your testing, you were actually put back a grade. And I mean, even in high school, they don't do that anymore because they find it degrading to children. And they actually have like testing and these like weird standards where what they'll do is they'll put weaker students with stronger students that they know at a round table, and they'll all share their test results as they take tests and BS like that. I mean, it's crazy, dude. That does not help people at all.
Well, you know, Phoenix, when I moved up to Moorhead, Minnesota, the purpose of that was to go to Moorhead, Minnesota State University, Moorhead, which has an incredible teachers program, because I wanted to be a teacher. Originally, I wanted to be an elementary teacher, and then eventually I said I wanted to be a high school teacher. And then by meeting a professor, all of a sudden I'm like, I want to be a professor. But I have 4 friends that work in the school system in the surrounding area, and we get into these conversations of the disheartening of what is actually happening in our schools, where the schools are becoming more like military like structures, and they're more or less teaching our kids to be Pavlov's dog and waiting for the next bell to ring to tell them what next to do. And it's incredible that if you as a student and you apply yourself, you have incredible opportunities, especially with the technological advancements, because I do know of some students that are juniors that are actually in their second year of college because they've passed all the standardization and stuff. But this is in few examples. And unfortunately, as you're saying, the majority of these students, you know, are caught up in the whole sheeple mentality of if we can keep them distracted and keep them dumbed down, then we keep the control.
You know what? I just had an odd thought. I just had a curious thought that perhaps, just perhaps, because I'm thinking, why would you want this? Why, you know, would if you were a person in high power, would you want this? Perhaps, like I said, this is life school and a life test. Perhaps, just perhaps, this is a way to even winnow down and separate the masses even further. Because basically what you just described, and which is actually true, is that if a child, an individual, is very curious and predisposition to asking questions, seeking more, and wanting knowledge, they will find it. I don't care where they're at or who they are. They will find it. They will excel. But then a large percentage of the population doesn't want that. So perhaps what this is actually a devious plan to do a hyper separation of individuals. So only certain individuals will, you know, surpass the others, and the rest will be left behind. But you know, wait a minute, I just blew that whole theory out, because what happens is everybody graduates. So that doesn't work. That theory doesn't work either. Everybody's like pulled along. So you have these super high achieving individuals who could be valedictorians and just extremely brilliant, and they are graduating with people who can't even barely read, and they have no ambition at all because it's the only fair thing to do. So forget what I just said and that thought, because that's just it totally blows.
But you know, I do agree to you in an aspect that if you look at this new standardized testing, and if you remember, if you can remember from high school and stuff, I remember that the first thing that they consistently did, and you've heard me say this before, our greatest gift that we have is pattern recognition, where we have the ability to recognize the cycle and adjust to the cycle. And the earliest testing that I remember in school was figuring out the pattern. And when you have that gift of catching the pattern right away, then you're able to figure it out. And I believe that the powers that should not be are watching these standardized testing. And when your student or your child show these remarkable advancements in those prerequisites that they want, then all of a sudden at one point they come to you and wine and dine you and say, hey, we want you to be a Rhodes Scholar, or we want you to come to Harvard, or we want you to come to this, that, or the other thing, because eventually we want you on our side.
That is
and
true.
Not their side.
That is true, and there is evidence of some of that. I've known people who, I know a woman, her name was Mary Helen, actually. She would come on Phoenix Rising Radio years ago, and people have listened to Phoenix Rising Radio for 10 years or more. Probably remember Mary Helen. She was an astrologer, amazing astrologer. Hope she's well. I haven't heard from her. Or Magellan, who was her husband. He had a nickname Magellan because he used to travel on the rivers. And Mary Helen's father called him Magellan, as Magellan returns. Anyway, she was actually selected like that. The government came to her father. Somehow they found out about her because she had abilities. But they weren't academic abilities. They're more like X-File abilities, if you're familiar with the X-Files. And so they actually tried to recruit her into something, and her father wouldn't allow it. And they came later, and it's a very interesting story, but they do this, but not the standard ABCs and academics. It's something a little higher they're looking for that they usually peg these people with, unless they want them to be like something stupid like a politician. Oh, speaking of, Lake found a picture the other day. It was a young Angela Merkel, Theresa May, and I can't remember the other woman who was in it. She's a European leader, female leader. All three of them together when they were kids. And I mean, it wasn't photoshopped. It was real. It was Theresa May, Angela Merkel, and I can't remember the other woman, but she's a European leader, and they were all together. And when they were children, and we're like, what the heck? You talk about pre-picking somebody to do something. That's evidence right there.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. And my evidence of it is that if you can easily find this video of William Jefferson Clinton meeting John F. Kennedy when he was with the Rhodes Scholars, and they show John F. Kennedy going down this line of children, and he's shaking all of these kids' hands. And the only pause there is in this whole thing is when he's shaking William Jefferson Clinton's hand, and you can see from the exposure of the black and white, someone takes a picture. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, when William Jefferson Clinton is speaking from the White House, and in the background during his speech, what picture is there? And so how is the irony, out of all of those kids, there was probably like 15 plus kids that Kennedy went down the row and shook all their hands, but the only one that got the picture, the only photo of all those kids, was William Jefferson Clinton.
Oh, here's one for you that you may not have heard. President Ronald Reagan, who, very famous for the end of the Cold War and dropping of the Iron Curtain, the Berlin Wall, etc. He actually, and this is very well known, he met Donald J. Trump. And when he met a young Donald J. Trump and shook his hand, and there were other people around too, it's said that Ronald Reagan stopped while he was shaking his hand and looked at other people and says, I feel like I'm shaking the hand of a future president of the United States. And everyone kind of like laughed and everything, but he was shaking Donald Trump's hand. True story.
Okay, well, there's another validation that I'm going to put in my pocket that Trump is exactly where he was supposed to be. That was predetermined, because if you look at Reagan's history, you can find him at Bohemian Grove, and you can find him in the Bilderbergers and the Trilateral Commission and the Council of Foreign Relations.
Well, I kind of disagree with that a little bit because what you're saying, the predisposition, I think possibly what may be going on there, NeSe, is an energetic that they don't even realize. I mean, because let's look at the energetic layout of Washington, D.C. itself. And we're talking about the occultic, the Masonic, we're talking about the owl, we're talking about the obelisk, we're talking about the reflecting pool, the Capitol, the Oval Office, the whole thing, and we're talking about all this energy that these guys put into this area energetically. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if there are energetic portals right there in the District of Columbia. And that's why they put it there, because someone detected this, that this would be a PowerPoint of leadership, and that it wouldn't almost be like an energetic window that opened up when these things happened. That perhaps Kennedy didn't know this, but something energetically, kind of caught his attention. And the same thing with Reagan. It's not that, Kennedy knew who Clinton was, or that Reagan really thought that Trump would be a president. It was a feeling that came over them. It was an energetic that actually, intersected with them at that time to make them publicly say something or do something.
Well, my first response to that is where Washington, D.C. was known by the indigenous people, the Native American people, to have such a huge significance as a ceremonial place, or a place that was regarded, for lack of a better term, as a sacred area. But as you talk about these energies, and we go back to the ancient powers that should not be, we look at the pyramid and the claim that the pyramid, where the king's chamber was when the leader of the time was put into the chamber, and the entity or the spirit or the essence of one of these ancient entities were brought into the human vessel. And as you were saying, in Washington disease, you see the same kind of pattern of energy or mystery Babylon. And as we talk about the biggest penis in Washington, D.C., and the Washington Monument in itself, we come back to the birth recognition of today. And May Day, May 1st, the one, the pole, the stick put into the ground, where the Washington Monument is a big stick put into the ground, the penis put into Mother Earth, the male and the female, and we get into the esoteric of the mystery Babylon.
Yeah, the entire symbolism goes further than that. For people who don't know, the phallus symbol of the Washington Monument is right on the reflecting pool, and at a certain time, the shadow of the Washington's Monument goes right into the reflecting pool, which is long, and that is the female aspect of it. And then at the very end of that, it's the Capitol building, which looks like an egg, the oval. So, an interesting thing came to mind, a thought, when you're talking about all this. Both Kennedy and Reagan were shot. Of course, Reagan survived his. He was shot by John Hinckley Jr. Kennedy, really not, it's not defined yet exactly who he was shot by. But the curious thing is I wonder, after Kennedy shook Clinton's hand, how many days it was until he was assassinated. And in the same token, when Reagan shook Donald Trump Jr.'s hand and said he felt like he was shaking the hand of a former president, how many days was it until he was almost killed by John?
Oh, that's an interesting, listeners in the chat room, find that one out for us, because that's a good question there. the other thing that I wanted to share with the audience is if you find me on YouTube, I'm placating, sorry, with my ego, but my YouTube page, Cannabis Rez, R-E-Z, Solution, there is a playlist that I created for the show tonight, and it's called Illuminati Behavior, Bad, Shame on You. And there's 6 videos in there that I find really really useful, and I placate it with even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, don't take everything for the absolute truth, but listen to its entirety and use your own discretion, because you will know thyself and thy truth.
Exactly. And circling back on all this, talking about Mayday, the Illuminati, all these energetics, everything we've been talking about, and life school. And you shall know the truth. This is where we as individuals have to look upon our own hearts and know that it doesn't matter really what they do. Just like I was saying at the beginning of the program, when they were searching for these strange artifacts or ancient things and they were looking for something, everything they were looking for is within their own hearts, within their own being, if they only knew. But like monkeys, they're searching around for something that they don't even know that they already have. And this protection that we're looking for, the changes that we're looking for, the freedom that we're looking for, we already have. You're already free. I'm already free. Everybody's already free. We just have to find it and accept it and own it.
Well, once we recognize the illusion of time and the cell that it can be, we can find our own freedom in that knowing. Because when we realize what their parameters are and how they're trying to set up the traps or the cells, then we have the ability to be boundless and think outside of the box, because we are miracles. We are miracles, and we are ultimate perfection, because there is no other you in the universe. And in that ultimate uniqueness of the oneness that you are perfection. But if we want to start discussing our behaviors, then we can see where we lack the ultimate perfection. But it goes back to being the choice to be the change and utilizing the incredible gift that we've been presented with this physical being to actually motivate it to move, to create all of the dreams that we all share.
Exactly, and true. And that's within everybody. That's within your own heart. I kept saying we're going to touch upon the news, but what's the point? The news will always be there. And it's how you perceive this stuff. When you wake up every day and you check the headlines or you check your favorite news source, what happens to you? Do you allow that to dictate how you will feel? Do you allow that to energetically change you, or do you take command of that? Do you check it like, yep, see that's going on, but for me it's going to be like thus. And that's what we have to do. We have to stand up and take authority. Take authority in your own life, in your own heart. Do you always stand strong? No. Do you always have authority in your life? No, absolutely not. That's not life. Life is flowing. Life is energetic. And the flowing, energetic part of this life, you'll feel bad someday. You will feel angry someday. You will feel sad one day. You'll feel glorious one day. But the key to all of this is finding an even kill. Whenever your ups aren't so high and your downs aren't so low, whenever you can get to the point where going up, up, up high doesn't make you extremely elated, and going down, 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 down doesn't make you extremely sad, because you know and you realize that it's all part of the journey. So don't overreact to any of that, the good nor the bad, and seek an even keel in all this, because that's where we're all going. And you have the control of this. You are the captain. You are the captain of the vessel that you're in right now. And the joy, the peace, the prosperity, everything you're seeking is in your heart.
Well, I know that you know that we know that within love, without fear, in the center of our universal sphere, that the answers are there. And like Phoenix was just talking with the news is just like Phoenix and his pot too close to the edge. And when he spills his pot, he has the choice of saying, do I want this to get me all bent out of shape? Do I want to be aggravated about my spilled pot on the floor? Or can I take a breath and realize what happened and say, hey, it's all cool because I'm still here, having the opportunity to experience the spilling of my pot.
So true. And I'm sure my little seeds will still grow. Yeah, and if you're wondering if you just joined in late and you're wondering how I spilled my pot, well, you're going to have to go back to the beginning of the program and listen to that. But anyway.
Plant your seeds. Plant your seeds.
Everybody plant your seeds. We all plant our seeds. And that's the thing. Be careful of what seeds you plant, because they will grow. Even if you spill the pot, they will grow. Anyway, we're rolling out of time here. Thank you very much, NeSe, for being with me this evening.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. Pull the weeds of ignorance, plant the seeds of truth and knowledge, and harvest a better tomorrow.
Exactly. And if you happen to drop the window and your pot goes flying, sweep it up and start over again. Anyway, that's it, people. We're out of here. I'll be back on Thursday. Bob Patrick will not be with me. I may have a guest. I may not. That's it. Find someone you love. Tell them that you love them. And know that good things are coming to you. And those seeds are the ones that will grow.
Toodles.